also like to acknowledge that we are here on traditional Treaty 7 territory. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta who share a very deep connection with this land. So I'm happy to be with you today to represent my colleague Brian Malkinson, the Minister of Service Alberta. And I also want to thank Chris Hunt, the Executive Director of the Utilities Consumer Advocate, for joining with us today. And I'd like to thank Say-Jess for having us as well, and all the important work that your organization does day in and day out to support domestic violence survivors in our community. Domestic violence is an issue that I care very deeply about. I'm so proud of the work that our government has done to support survivors, and that includes the Safer Spaces for Victims of Domestic Violence Act, which I was proud to introduce in the fall of 2015. I brought this bill forward because finances should never be a barrier when fleeing violence. This bill unanimously passed, and these changes became law in 2016. They have made a real difference for survivors of domestic abuse. This bill amends the Service Alberta Residential Tenancy Act to allow survivors of domestic violence who are renting a home or apartment to cancel a rental agreement without any financial penalty. This was a significant change and a very important one. If you're a survivor of domestic abuse, quick action is essential. One of many lessons we've learned from survivors of domestic abuse is that the ability to escape an abusive situation is absolutely essential. However, until this act passed and the Safer Spaces program was introduced, if you are a renter in Alberta, your ability to escape was not easy. It used to mean breaking a lease that you co-signed with your abuser, or it meant that you would lose out on your damage deposit. We know that these things can be barriers for many domestic violence survivors from leaving an unsafe environment. So I was so proud when these barriers were removed. Since its inception in August 2016, the Safer Spaces program has helped hundreds of our neighbors across Alberta. To date, more than 650 Albertans have accessed Safer Spaces certificates. So let's just take a moment to think about that. That's not just a number, that's more than 650 people, each with their story, each with their own life, their own trauma, who have been able to end their lease early and flee violence. No one should feel trapped in an unsafe home because they can't afford to break their lease. This certificate removes barriers for survivors. And that means safety first, not finances, when leaving a dangerous situation. With supporting documents such as a court order or professional statement, a survivor can use this application to obtain a certificate they can use to terminate their tenancy. To date, the province has reacted quickly to these requests, issuing certificates in an average of 1 day. This has helped many Albertans leave violence without additional financial barriers. The important change we've made over the last couple of years will be further enhanced today with the help of Direct Energy. We'll hear more details in a moment from Lori Armstrong of Direct Energy, but let me be clear. The news from Direct Energy is very important for survivors fleeing violence. And Alberta's Utility Consumer Advocate will be convening a working group to encourage other realtors to adopt similar programs as what Direct Energy is about to unveil. I deeply appreciate the support of our government's landlords, utility realtors, Say-Jess, and other community groups, and the general public for this initiative. Together, we've made hundreds of lives better and safer. Thank you so much.